Thank you. And welcome those who have just joined. Okay, maybe just 2 more minutes because I know there's a lot of RSVPs. I don't see everyone here just yet.
Can you all hear me okay? Let's do that. We can test my audio while we're here. That's good? Okay.
Perfect.
And then I have my special fuzzy filter on my camera.
I was gonna say it's very pro.
Thanks. It's the 6th gin and tonic filter.
Can you adjust by levels of gin and tonic?
No, I wish there was a slider or something. No, it's like a two-month-old camera, and it made me fuzzy, which is a bummer because now I have to get a new one.
Welcome, welcome. I can see a few more filtering in. So we're at 3 minutes past. Do you think should we kick off now and then?
Yep. 1 more minute.
1 more minute? Okay, let's give it 1 more minute.
That's
magic number.
Yes.
And Paul, your co-host, you have the share screen. Right?
Oh, great. Okay, great. Thanks. So last night I set up my 2-monitor setup in my room. So what will happen is the slides will go to the wrong monitor first. I'm just letting everyone know right away that we'll have a moment of confusion.
Set expectations.
Because set expectations low here. It looks great, but I'm sure it'll be like, what's going on?
We can be your friendly test group for your new setup.
Thank you.
No pressure.
Like guinea pigs.
Welcome for those joining or just arriving into the space. Grab a cup of water, tea, coffee, whatever you need to get comfy. And Paul, just give me the heads up when we're ready to go.
Okay. Well, I'm ready here, and it's 5 after, so why don't we rock and roll?
Rock and roll, awesome. Welcome and hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. This is a really special session. Many of you have met Paul, and maybe some of you haven't. Paul has been an expert of the IC community, but he's also one of our wonderful home group leads. Some of you might be in the awesome group. What's the name of your home group, Paul? You guys have a team name, right?
Oh yeah, we're called Impact United. United Impact.
So United Impact, big shout out to you. You're very lucky to have Paul. He is a serial entrepreneur, and he's also now dedicated solely to being a founder coach. So this topic of mental health and well-being for founders and entrepreneurs, I know is something very close to Paul's heart, something he's been able to witness and see through his journey of being an entrepreneur, but also supporting other startups. It is also Mental Health Week, and we, of course, meticulously planned that to coincide with Mental Health Week, but this is just such an important topic for every single founder and entrepreneur. We invited experts here as well to join us, and we will be recording this session for those of you just joining. Let us know if you have any issues with that. We can always choose not to distribute this afterwards if we want to keep this a safe space. But yes, big welcome, Paul, and a big thank you for sharing your insights and practical tips on this area. I think it's going to be really valuable for everyone.
Thanks, Jeff. Hi, everybody. Happy to be here. I know some of you, maybe a quarter of you I know, so the other 3/4, good to meet you. What we're going to do is we're going to be talking for a while, and then we'll do we talking for a while. Okay, so I'll run through the slides and the presentation and stuff, and then I'm really expecting some Q&A. So your job is to talk later on, okay? But I'll start. So let me see if I can get this up and running. Is that good? Can you see the slides?
Looking perfect.
Yeah, you get the full slide?
I can see the full slide plus a next slide option.
Okay, give me a sec.
Preview of that.
And now?
Yes, perfect. Now we can see the full slide.
Awesome. Okay. For those of you who missed it, I set up 2 monitors last night, of course, right before this presentation. So now I got it to work, so that's good. So today, thanks for being here again. I want to talk about founder mental health, okay, because it's an issue for all of us. I'm a 5 or 6 time serial founder. And so I know what it's like, and I've been through it, and I want to share some of what I've learned and some of what I've learned through myself and also through some of my coaching clients, and just talking and being around. So hopefully that helps all of you. Okay, so a little bit about today, about me. The about you happens at the end. Talk about why we're here, mental health and founders, the 4 things, and then Q&A. So let's just jump into this. A little bit about me. I'm probably the only person you'll meet today who worked for both the Asian Development Bank and MTV. Okay, I started MTVAsia.com many years ago in Internet 1.0. I've gone through 6 startups, had 2 exits, including a NASDAQ exit in listing in the early Internet 1.0 days and a trade sale. I started MTVAsia.com. I've raised lots of money. I've worked with ADB to set up their venture fund called ADB Ventures. I ran a regional accelerator for Telstra called Murudi that some of you may have heard of. And I've worked around as a mentor and angel investor and advisor and kind of been on all sides of the investment founder startup industry equation. So for better or worse, that's where a lot of my knowledge comes from. But I've had my hands on or in doing these kinds of things over the past 10, 15 years. So about me now, like Stephanie said, I really started to refocus my energies on coaching, founder coaching, focusing on primarily post-Series A founders, but not exclusively, in Southeast Asia, but not exclusively, and really helping founders getting renewed purpose and focus and passion. Because there are times as you go through this, and some of you may be experiencing this now, as you go through this journey, all of these things kind of come and go and wax and wane. And I know that there's a lot to talk about and work through as you're doing this. And if you figure that a startup is a 7 to 10-year long project, you will change and lots of things around you will change. And so what I do is I aim to help you on this journey. Okay. So a few caveats. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I don't even play a doctor on TV. I'm a founder. I'm a founder turned coach. Okay. And while what I'm going to tell you and what we're going to talk about today have helped me and others, they're just recommendations. Okay. They're not prescriptions. They're not exclusive. I hope they help you. But also, if you're feeling like you're having dangerous thoughts or you're in a really dark place, please go seek professional medical help. Okay. Talking to me is great. I'd love to talk to you. But after a certain point, if it gets serious, please go that next step. Okay. Clear? So my friend Craig has this great saying, entrepreneurs are one of humanity's greatest catalysts for positive change. And that's why I'm here. And I hope that's why you're here too. All of us really believe that what we're doing as founders can make a real change in the world, and especially Impact Collective, where it's in the name and it's in the focus and probably all in your DNA. And that's really excellent. Okay. But it's also hard. So this is one of my favorite quotes from Ben Horowitz, founder of Andreessen Horowitz, one of the biggest VCs in the Valley. As a startup, I slept like a baby, and I woke up every 2 hours and cried. And pretty much everybody has felt that, I would suspect, at some point or the other in your journey, right? And it's hard to admit, and it's hard to admit outside of this select group of founders that we are, but this is what we go through. This is what we feel, right? So a little recent survey by a company here in Singapore found that most founders are stressed out, surprise, and this takes toll on their mental health. 58% of them felt like they're exhausted. Personal relationships are at risk. You feel anger or anxiety, or you're touchy or easily illustrated, or it's difficult and frustrating. Anybody feel this? Anybody in this group? Right? Okay, right. Exactly. And then the business landscape, you worry about cash flow. This is what you stay up. This one is I stay up at night and think about the following items. I think about cash flow. I think about team dynamics. I think about long work hours and self-doubt and all those kinds of things, right? This is just what founders feel like. Okay, so if you're feeling it, you're not weird. You're not different. You're just like one of us. You're in this club. Excellent. Welcome. But one thing I want to say here, and anyone who knows me knows that I'm a big fan of female founders and I'm a big advocate. And I work with Shiloh's Tech, and there's probably 4 of the 5 companies I'm working with right now have female founders. But in this case, I want to call out the guys because guys are less likely to speak and seek out help. Okay, anyone who is a guy or knows a guy knows this, that this is guys don't talk, right? And so here's an area that we're not going to delve into too much today, but I want to call it out because guys don't talk about this stuff, and you guys need to be doing this because it's important, and it's important to you and your company and your friends and your family and your investors, but also to your health as well. So in general, guys don't talk about these things, and I'm really encouraging you to do that more. So we all have a founder journey, right? And in that, we have this constant and extreme stress and pressure, fear of failure, day-to-day uncertainty. We don't want to look bad or weak, of course, right? We all want to look good and in control. And, many of us are scared of rejection or lost faith. So what happens is there's this myth also of founders, also out in the media. And so, we see these folks, right? And we're thinking, hey, how come I'm not that good? How come I'm not Bezos? How come I'm not Elon? How come I'm not Jack, right? Maybe you're saying this. Maybe your parents are saying this. Maybe you think your parents are thinking about saying this, depending on which culture you're from. But these are the kind of the fears, and this adds to all of us, being stressed and feeling uncomfortable. Okay, so while we're thinking about that, what's really going on is this. Okay, the good news is though, all of us have these fears, right? Every founder and 99% of the founders that you don't know are going through these same things, right? All the emotions are jammed down. It's not pretty or healthy, and it touches all of our relationships. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. We all have our own stories. We all have our own caves that we descend into. So before we start, let me give you a little bit about one of my caves, my dark ones. Okay, I had a company that I built, and I sold games pre-App Store, mobile games in 8 countries across Asia, and I was the largest distributor of mobile games, and things were going really well. And I had 40 people around Southeast Asia and teams and offices all over Southeast Asia, and I was raising money. And while raising money, I got an offer to sell the company, cash, 8 figures in cash, US, which, by today's standards isn't huge, but it was enough to change my life and owning half the company and, put my kids through grad school and, make my life a very different thing. So signed the term sheet, got everything done. We were in the middle of due diligence. I'm all excited. I'm already spending the money in my head, right? We're going to grow. All of this stuff's going to happen. This is 2007 and the economic crisis hits. Kapow. And the buyers in the valley, in Silicon Valley, pull the money, pull the term sheet, and I'm left with 2 months of money left to run the company, 45 employees in 4 offices around Asia, and 3 young children, and a marriage that's falling apart, which just about covers all of it. Okay, so that's what that was that cave, that hole. Okay, that's a scary place. Okay, what happened was, luckily, we were able to figure stuff out, and over the course of the next year, trim some staff, get smarter about the business, sell it eventually, had an exit, so that was good. But there was a year that woulda, shoulda, coulda killed me. So believe me, I know every night I felt like, do I fire people? Do I keep people on board? What do I tell them? What do I tell my investors? What do I tell my kids? All of that kind of stuff. So I get it. All right. The good news is that now there's more awareness. Like, people are talking about this. We have Mental Health Week, Mental Health Month, Mental Health Day on Sunday, depending on where you live, which is all great. And we can start talking about these things now. So, but what can you do if you're in that cave? And some of you may be in that cave today, or you may have been last week. You know, what are some practical things that you can do when you're there? And that's really what we're talking about today. Okay, makes sense. So, for those of you who know me, I cook a lot, and a lot of my thoughts are about food. So, in New Orleans, in the U.S., there's a kind of cooking called Cajun cooking, and virtually every dish starts with what they call the Holy Trinity, which is onions, celery, and peppers, or capsicum, as you say out here. Okay, so that's that Holy Trinity. There's the other Holy Trinity that we all grew up with, that our parents have taught us about: eating well, sleeping well, exercising well, right? We all know this, right? We all ignore this. We don't do this stuff. I can pretty safely say that virtually all of you in this room are not doing all three of these things well, more than once a week, right? In fact, I was wondering, like, how many of you have eaten pizza this week, or the local equivalent of pizza, instead of having like a real dinner, right? And I would say probably 40% of you have already done that. Okay. Depends where you are. In India, it may not be pizza. In Bangladesh, it may not be pizza. In Indonesia, it may not be pizza, but you get what I'm talking about, right? Okay, but that's not what we're going to talk about either, because you should know that stuff. And we already know that. I don't have to tell you what your mother or parents or school told you, right? We're going to talk about the 4 other things. These are the things that I'm suggesting here. So number 1 is talk. The second one is touch. The third one is help. And the fourth one is celebrate. So let's go through each of these kind of quickly, talk about them. So, talk. It's the most obvious, but often the hardest thing to do. It's just to talk to people about how you're feeling. Talking to you guys also, specifically here. To get your fears out in the open and let them see the light of day really, really makes a difference. And if you're feeling like you can't, that is weakness, or the societal norms to say not to, time to get over that, right? In many cases, just articulating what you're feeling helps to relieve the pressure of these ghosts. And it's scary and it's difficult to do. And culturally, I understand that in some cultures, it's difficult to do, and it's not accepted to talk about the possibility of failure or talk about the possibility of weakness. All right. But the good news is kind of who you can talk to. There's now, as opposed to when I was doing this 10, 12, 15 years ago, where there was nobody to talk to. Now there's a recognition in our industry that this is a problem and that there are solutions to this. So you can talk to your friends. You can talk to your family. You can talk to therapists. You can even talk to coaches, right? There are ways to do this, or just, be able to talk to other founders, right? And this is one of the great things. And one of the great things about being an IC right now is that you're surrounded by other founders who are going through very much the same thing you are, and if they aren't now, they have in the past, right? And that's really helpful. So it's okay to reach out, and it's okay to talk about these things. And it's so helpful. It gets a lot of the pressure off you, and a lot of the stress off of you, to hear that other people have gone through these same things that you have, right? Pretty much wherever you are, wherever there is a kind of a startup environment, a startup culture, you can find organized events specifically addressing these issues. Alrighty, and they encourage founders to talk about their experiences. All right, and this is really important, and I super encourage you to do this. If this is in your town, your city, join. If not, online, and do it, and hear the stories of other founders, and understand that you're not crazy, and that you're not different, and that you're not a loser. You're just a founder, and you're going through this stuff that everybody else goes through. It's super important to be able to understand that, and to share different kinds of fears and coping mechanisms to help you go further along, okay? So if there aren't organized events, find other founders, talk to them. Maybe some of your investors will know. Maybe some of your mentors will know. Just as you may have found technical mentors, you can find mentors who will help you here as well. And almost everybody's going to be willing to talk about it, because it's such a big, deep, shared thing, right? So just in Southeast Asia, As an example, there's something called C Founders, which is exactly this. It's support growth stage founders to scale in Southeast Asia. But a lot of what they talk about is the scary stuff, right? It's like, yeah, okay, I can scale my SaaS business really well. I get that. That's like well known. But like, yikes, I haven't slept in a week and I'm eating badly, and my wife is pissed at me, right? What do I do here? Try to find groups like this. This is just one. You can reach out to them in Southeast Asia, but I suspect that there are other ones in other parts of Asia as well. Next up comes touch. And so there's a complex, a syndrome called touch starvation. I don't know if any of you have heard of this, but you may have been through it yourselves. And this is when you don't get enough physical touch, you become stressed or anxious or depressed, and your body creates cortisol, okay? And this in turn makes your heart rate go big, raises your blood pressure, increases muscle tension, your breathing rate, all these things, not good for you, right? And all because you're not getting touched enough. And of course, that leads to other bad things as well. So going through this is called touch starvation, and it's a condition that happens when you don't get as much touch as you wish, or as you used to, or any at all, right? So why does this help? There's good news, because there's another hormone that our body produces called oxytocin. Okay, some of you may have heard of oxytocin, and this counteracts the effect of stress and makes you feel better. Okay, it's also known as the happy or love hormone, the love hormone, right? And it's produced through positive touch, like hugging or kissing, cuddling, sexual intimacy, happy time, all those kinds of things. This is where you get the oxytocin being produced by your body, which is why it feels good, which is why you feel better after you do these things, right? It's linked to warm, fuzzy feelings, lowers stress, lowers anxiety. And of course, it has these other effects on your emotional responses as well. So why am I talking about this? Because if you get a touch fix, it helps you lower your stress and become like more of a normal person and feel better about life. There's a study in 2012 that found that 95 adults they had 15 minutes of massage, either receiving or giving. Okay, even giving a massage. Okay, 95% of the 95 adults felt better after 15 minutes of doing this. So you don't even have to get the massage. You can just give somebody the massage, and that will help you feel better. So some of the things here that you can get it, you have family, you have friends, you have animals, you got massage, you get cat cafes. When I was researching this, the penny finally dropped for me as to why you have these cat cafes. I just thought it was like for teenage Japanese girls, and they thought it was cute and you had cats. Okay, but actually, if you hang out with cats and you touch them and they touch you, you actually get a oxytocin rush and you feel better and you come away feeling better about life. Okay, so I finally got that. Okay, but P.S. Don't be a creep. Okay, respect everybody's personal space and their cultural norms. Don't go up and just hug and grab and massage strangers. That doesn't work so well, especially if you're a guy. Don't do that. Okay, make sure that you're asking questions. But this does really help in general. Okay, and one last thing. Who knows who this is? Does anyone know who this is? Steph?
Billie Eilish?
Yes. And why is Billie Eilish here? Because her latest single is called Oxytocin. Okay, pretty amazing. So even I, this grumpy old guy who knows who this is, because her song is called Oxytocin, and she has the single, and you should listen to it. But it's talking about the same thing, right? That hormone that is produced in your body from positive touching experiences, and that's really important. It's easy to do, and as a founder, you coming home late and you're thinking about all your own stuff and this and that, it's so easy to forget about hugging your kids or your partner or touching somebody else or petting your dog, and it makes such a difference both for them and for you. So I really recommend. That's one of the 4 items. Okay, so moving on, we got help. So when I was a kid, a teen, I was a Boy Scout. Okay, and I don't know if any of you were Boy Scouts or whether it's the same in Asia with Girl Scouts. I learned lots of really useful skills, cooking and camping and lighting fires and stuff like that. But one of the corny bits of being a Boy Scout, and there are plenty of them, was the motto. And the motto was, do a good turn daily. And for us, that was always like shown as helping a little old lady across the street. Which, if you're a 15-year-old boy, that's, yeah, right, okay, I'm going to do that every day, right? So everybody thought that was really naff, and it was really kind of unnecessary. But it turns out that this does help. So let's go back to my story for a second. I successfully sell the company. I find myself 3 young kids, no job, on my own, single dad, and I'm in a pretty woeful state. I don't know, what I'm going to do, where I'm going to go, and I'm feeling pretty sad about myself. Woe is me, right? And one weekend, a friend called up and said, "Hey, do you want to go help me teach kids with learning disabilities how to swim?" And I thought, yeah, okay, I'm not doing anything on this Saturday. Get me out of the house. So I started to do that, and I spent 3 or 4 hours in a pool with some kids. And it was like a switch was thrown. It was completely um, phenomenal. I came away feeling better, stronger, more positive, happier, felt like I had a meaning in life. It was just because I was doing something that wasn't about me. It wasn't me thinking, woe is me, my life is so bad, poor Paul. It was like I was actually helping other people. Okay. And so there's all sorts of things that you can do here. I continued trying all sorts of different things, and, teaching kids to read, or making food for a sick friend, or helping people to move, those kinds of things. It really helps. And especially if you're a founder, because you are so tied up in your own stuff all the time. And we all know that. It's all we think about is me, 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 me. So sometimes, getting out of the me, me, me thing is really important. Okay. Is this karma? Is this the universe? I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know how it works. There's no like magic hormone being produced here, but there are dozens of studies that show that participating in voluntary services really helps, and it's predictive of better mental health, life satisfaction, self-esteem, happiness, which we all need, especially as founders, because this stuff is often absent as we work so hard and focus on our team, our business, our raise, our problem, our tech, our user metrics, our KPIs, our OKRs. We forget all of this stuff. And sometimes it's really important to just go spend a couple hours a week, help people out, maybe just 2-3 hours a month, just do something like that. It really makes a difference. Okay. I recommend it to all the founders I coach, by the way. And just doing something simple and easy like this, it takes your mind off of you, and onto other things. So last but not least, we have celebrate, which we all, of course, like to do. And so here, recently, I'm working with a client. He's a CEO of an ad tech company, and he had a highly dispersed team in the middle of COVID. He had people on his team in Scotland, in England, in Ukraine, in Russia, in Hong Kong, here in Singapore, and he was having problems managing his team because they felt like really unmotivated, and they felt like they were dispersing, right? Really common. And if any of you have gone through this, you know what that feels like. Like, where's your team? You can't see each other, they're far away, all of that kind of stuff. So after some discussion, when we were talking, the coaching sessions, it came through that the team wasn't acknowledging their wins or successes. They weren't sharing what was going on that was positive. Rather, they were just going from item to item to item in their stand-ups, right? And who's doing this? Who's doing that? What's your KPI? Are you meeting your numbers? Those kinds of things. So, of course, as a founder, he was really focused on those things because that was his job, right? But his team's like falling apart. So what we talked about was incorporating some rituals and starting to celebrate even simple, crazy things, wearing hats, blowing horns, singing songs, doing silly dances, just like really goofy, simple stuff to do to celebrate the wins during their weekly stand-up calls. And it changed the entire tenor of the company immediately. And soon people were volunteering to do it and driving those kinds of celebrations themselves, rather than him saying, hey, be happy. The team is going, I want to do this, I want to do this. And they're all doing things on their own, okay? Really simple, really easy, but sometimes you forget, especially when we're remote, that, it's people too, right? But, sometimes we just feel like this. So important, don't forget the cookies, right? It's like, don't forget that kind of stuff, because that stuff's important, right? And it's important for you, but it's also important for your team, right? And when that reflects back, then you feel like a better leader, you feel like a better founder, everybody works better, the defenses come down. And it's so easy. But all of these things actually are pretty easy, but we forget about them because we're human and we think that all those other things are more important, right? So don't forget to celebrate, these things. Oh, there's studies also, 12,000 diary entries by Harvard, okay? Capturing small wins every day enhances a worker's motivation, and simply recording progress helps to boost self-confidence. Okay, I'm thinking of cookies and silly dances. Harvard thinks of it in a different way, but it's basically the same thing here. Stop, take a moment, celebrate the wins, incorporate that with your team, get the dopamine flowing when you feel like you're doing good. Okay, another hormone at work to help you feel happier. Okay, and if you're not celebrating, then you're training yourself to go that way, and your life kind of becomes flat. Okay, so remember to acknowledge your wins, maybe keep a journal, consciously take a moment to savor that, share with others. Oh yeah, and reward yourself too, like pat yourself on the back. When was the last time you said, oh, I did a good job, I should buy myself a good meal, right? Not a pizza, not a Happy Meal, not a bottle of whiskey, but go for a walk, or just like take an afternoon off or something like that when you actually accomplish something. And treat yourself well, feel better about this stuff, right? So summary, 4 things: talk, touch, help, celebrate. All right, I can't guarantee you're going to be happier 100% of the time, but these are things that you can incorporate into your daily lives easily. There's science behind it. It's not just Paul saying it's a good idea. There's actual science there. Paul and Harvard say this is true, right? And science does too. And you'll be a better founder, and you'll be a better human, and you'll be a better partner, and hopefully, more successful at what you're doing, and just happier. And being happy, don't underestimate being happy, because it impacts everything that you're doing. Okay, and so simple things you can incorporate into your life daily or weekly with your team, with your family, with your partner, and that's it. So enough of me talking. Let's take a second here, and then we can launch into some questions and answers. Yeah, let me undo this. Okay, am I still sharing?
Yes.
Are we good?
Still sharing.
Okay. You want to take back? Stop share. There it is. Alrighty.
We can see each other. Thank you so much, Paul. And so now should we just open up into an organic Q&A, popcorn style? So if there's something you want to share, you can either use the raise hand function or just chime in. We're a pretty small group. Go ahead, Sushil.
So of course, this was an amazing discussion, I would say. It's not a presentation. So we had a good discussion. And Paul, say, once we are running into like a sort of race we are running into, right? So we have to do, so everything is time bounded. So if we don't do it today, tomorrow might be late. So, some it's generally, I think in most of us, everybody must be facing it around. So we have to, there's so many tasks which we are doing today, and if it is time, probably we can do the celebration, try to postpone the celebration. So let that particular milestone reach, and then we'll celebrate. So, and this is there in every day, right? We have been experiencing from this so long. So that's something dilemma is always there. So isn't it like, if we spare more time into celebration, or don't focus on the right now what we are doing, then we'll miss our train.
Yeah, I get it. I understand that. But as it turns out, like if you miss some of those deadlines, or what is supposed to be due on Wednesday actually happens on Thursday, your company's not going to explode. People aren't going to quit. Clients aren't going to run away screaming. Sometimes taking that hour or that evening or that morning to do something special really makes a difference and charges people up to go do that. I ran a big development team many years ago. I ran a big development team. We were doing 2 simultaneous software projects and had a really tight schedule. And like every other Friday, I'd take them to the movies. We'd take the Friday afternoon off. We'd go to the movies. And my bosses at that point, they were appalled. They just thought that was like the worst possible thing. But it made us a better team. It made us happier. It took the pressure off. We met all the deadlines. We had a good time watching movies. Sometimes we'd have a beer afterwards. It was just, and that was during work hours. It wasn't even like after work. It was just, we just did it because sometimes you need to do it, right? And the world didn't tip over, we didn't miss the deadlines. Everybody was happy.
Has anyone studied sort of the relationship between mental health, well-being, and performance? Like in teams? Any of the Harvard studies that you might have come across?
I was going to say.
It sort of makes sense, but
I'm sure they're out there, and I can sniff around and see what I can find. But I just common sense and experience tells me that yes, that the happier you are, the more productive you are, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's management theory tells us that. So if you change the music in the factory floor, people perform better, right? We're talking about another level here, but certainly the happier people are, the better they perform, and the more that they want to work with you and work with your company and achieve the shared goals.
Very true.
Yeah. We did this experiment with like having a well-being budget. So like giving everyone agency to determine, what's required for your best well-being. And that could look different from each person, and the company going like, we're going to give you a budget for that. I think Jackie also practices this as well at VSS, but yeah, I find that there's 2 reactions to it. One, like mainly perceived from outside that's too fluffy, or like, like making investments into well-being for your team is not a, worthwhile investment. There is a feeling that it's not linked to better performance or outcomes that matter. So yeah, there's like a cultural push that needs to happen as well around this.
Yeah, agreed. Anyone else do that?
See, my team, we have a team of about 15 people. So often it happens because we are in the sort of service, we are giving it to the people, those who are associated with us. So often it happens most of all the holidays, when everybody celebrates the holiday, we have to go and work. So what we do is generally, I try to force everybody, please shut it down today, and let's spare your time with your family. So of course, we are not able to give big parties, etc. But definitely, we just try to push them hard to go and take a rest today because it's public holiday. So you should feel like you are with everyone. So that's what we do.
Nice.
I think, Paul, here I would like to share that we are also a team of small 11 people. So every quarterly we are, because of COVID, for last 2 quarters, we didn't did this thing together. But what we are doing, we are keeping a football match every quarter. And that really, not only it helps health being, but also a team spirit, I would say. So it really helps us, to keep up the team spirit. And it also helps to interact each other. So it's a 1 day we spare for every quarter.
Nice. Who else? Other thoughts or questions?
Well, I have one question.
Sure.
So sometimes it's difficult to kind of, so I got married 2 years back, right? And as a founder, it's difficult to get manage stuff and do a work-life balance both at the same time, right? So what are your advice and how that can be balanced in a much more effective way? Because sometimes your company, you rightly said, it's kind of a baby, right? Sometimes you're not able to have a sleep of night as well to make your venture run. And at the same time, there is also your another role which you have to play. So how to do it effectively?
Classic question, Shani. Good question. So first off, I don't think there's such a thing as a work-life balance. Okay, I think that's a myth, and I don't know anyone, male or female, who's really achieved that. So trying to say, oh, achieving that mythical state and then feeling bad about yourself because you haven't done it, that's just asking for trouble. So um, if any of you follow Scott Galloway, he's a professor at NYU in marketing, has a bunch of podcasts. He's very popular right now. He says there is no work life balance. There's just compromises, and that's kind of what it is. You need to make a choice between this and this, that and that, whatever. Okay, and some days you're going to take an hour out from coding or BD or whatever, and take a walk in the park or go hug your kids or go to a cat cafe or whatever that thing is, so that you feel better. And because if you feel better and you're happier, then it has that ripple effect. Okay, so I think that's too. There's no magic bullet here. There's no silver bullet magic method to do this, right? I mean, you do what you can do, and you do little bits here and there, but it does make a difference. And don't feel like there's a work-life balance, because it's a myth, right? It's like, you're only going to make yourself unhappy trying to achieve it. So don't do it, right?
Sure. Thanks for the wonderful advice.
Sure. Or Paul, you raised your hand before.
Sure. Hi, Paul. Thanks
Hi.
for the session. I was just wondering, because in business, especially business that are scalable, you always have different stages of growth from 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 100, 100 to 1,000, let's say, and beyond, right? Mm-hmm. And from your experience, do you feel differently on each stage, or each stage kind of proposing you different questions or feelings? And beyond that, once you become successful in one startup, your next startup, does it repeat itself again? So I just wanted to know. And then,
yeah, great question.
Where does the thing stop? I mean, from 10 to 100 is like one set of shit feeling. Another, 100 to 1,000 is another set of shit feeling. I mean, so I can decide whether this is going to go on or what, just
right. Right. No, that's a good question. And it's true, as your company scales, as a founder CEO, your problems scale as well. But I don't think what scales is the feelings you have related to that, right? You choose how you feel. Yes, you're still going to be scared. Yes, you feel equally as like, oh no, are my parents going to reject me, or are the investors going to send that check in, or are these people going to quit, or the customers going to come? I mean, you still have those same fears, right? And they just get bigger, right? So it's important, maybe even more important than to have a set of tools that you develop to make yourself feel good, regardless of the intensity or the difference of those problems. And that's really easy for me to say now, but there were 12, 15 years where I didn't know that, and it was like, oh, I kept, you're like that mouse on the wheel, you're still doing the same thing. And you don't know, and it's hard to sometimes break out of that loop. All right. And I guess what I'm trying to do here, and what I'm trying to do as a coach also, is like, what are the different kinds of strategies that you can develop, each one of you, to be able to get out of that loop, right? Recognize the loop, say, oh, I'm doing this again. One of the benefits of doing it 5 or 6 times is eventually you learn not to do it again, right? And you say, okay, I have these tools that I can avoid doing this. And that's what we're aiming for here. So whether or not you want to do another startup or not, after you successfully or unsuccessfully exited startup A, do you want to do B, C, and D? You know, that's a lifestyle choice. That's you and your family and your partner, you know, whatever. Generally, most people can't stay away. You become like addicted to it, and you got to go back in because you can't go work for Oracle after doing this, right? But yeah, hopefully you come with a new set of tools and a new set of understanding about how to help yourself and be better at it.
Thank you.
I saw a hand. There's a hand. Keen.
Thanks for all of the practical tips and your insights. Appreciated. I just wanted to ask, what would you say to the founders whose sense of responsibility has now disproportionately outweighs the sense of passion, for example? Like this is, I guess, one of the common things that I've heard from the other founders, in that they had a vision, but it's now blinded by the sense of responsibility, and that creates a start of, you know, the downfall of your mental health as well. But I've always thought that it's always good to, you know, go back to the reason why you started and everything. But you know, in reality, thinking about that amidst of all of the troubles is quite difficult. So I was wondering if you had, you know, any tips that you would like to share to people.
Sure. No, that's a really good observation. And I talk about this a lot, both publicly and then with my coachees, is that I call it the North Star. Like, why are you doing this? You know, in theory, we all started our companies trying to solve a problem, right? For impact in most of your cases, some people just to make money, some people to do something better, that it irritated them and they had a different process, or, you know, they wanted to do something different or better. And that was the initial motivator. And after 3, 4, 5 years, that gets lost, or it changes, or you forget about it, or you get distracted by all the other things. I always recommend taking some time every year for sure, but even every 6 months, take a couple of days off to think about what your motivation is, because you're right, it is the driver. And if you lose that from in your heart, the other stuff becomes too hard after a while. You know, you lose the motivation to get out of bed, you lose the motivation to answer the hard questions, to make the hard decisions, to go the extra mile to raise the money. You know, like, if your heart's not in it anymore, it's very difficult to do that stuff, right? So taking some time out for yourself, either with a class or a retreat or a coach or a, you know, therapist or something, just to think about what your motivation here is and remember what it is. And sometimes it's changed. I mean, you know, you grow up, we all grow up. It's like 3 years ago was 3 years ago. We're not the same people we were then. So that may have changed as well. But looking in your heart and remembering why you're doing this or why you're doing it now is really important to move forward. So don't forget about that. That's my advice. It's not really advice, but paying attention to it and reaffirming it for yourself is really key to your mental health, because that's one of the places where founders trip up. You're right. Does that answer your question? I don't feel like I gave you like here's 3 things to do, but
no, it does. I think it's a good insight, something that we should all I guess constantly remember and remind ourselves. So thank you so much for that.
Sure.
Kind of reminds me of, like, I keep forgetting to do this, but just even the power of sort of visual cues around that in terms of reminders, having something that reconnects you to it. Because when you need that reminder the most, it's often not as accessible or visible to you. Yeah, I struggle with that too. And I've also had these like questions about when will I know? Because I think founders have like stretch into a kind of resilience that makes us able to do what we do. So our bandwidth, so like we're able to stretch like rubber bands. And sometimes I wonder, where is the point where I need to stop stretching because it's beyond my, how do I have an honest conversation about when it's too much as well, and when it might actually be healthier to step away, or healthier to, you know, do something else. And I think it's a really hard conversation to have, because I think like we build in the sense of we can overcome. It's part of our character and identity as founders, as entrepreneurs. Have you ever dealt with stuff like that, Paul, or helping navigate other startups around that?
Oh yeah, really common. I mean, a lot in what you just said, but I'll just tackle the last two things there. One, yes, we almost all become our companies, right? And so our psyche becomes the success or failure of the company is equal to our personal success or failure. You know, we often glue the two together, and that you know, when you're not doing it, it seems like dangerous and foolish. But when you're in the middle of it, of course you're doing it, right? It just happens. We're all humans, so we all do that. So keeping an eye on that and remembering that we are not our companies, much easier said than done, right? The second part is having, I have found personally, parts of my week that are rituals, okay, that exist with or without the company, right? You know, I have a family dinner every Sunday night. Come hell or high water, you know, we're having dinner Sunday night, and I cook it, and you're showing up, and that's, you know, that's the rules, and it's been the rules for 12 or 15 years. And to me, my kids may give you a different answer, but to me, it's been really important that I have that thing, and it makes me focused on, okay, this is important. That the company's nice, but this is what's going on in my life, and I'm not thinking about the company, right? Other things you could do is like getting outside and doing walking meetings. Like say, okay, as many meetings as I can this week, I'm going to do outside, just to change the variables a little bit so that it's not so tunnel vision, right? And trying to mix up the tunnel vision and remember what's important in your life through ritual. Those are really important. And everybody has their own version of that. You don't have to cook dinner on Sunday night, but you know, I mean, if you know, sometimes you go for a run with your family or your kids or your relatives or just some buddies or something. If you do it every week, you know, having that thing that is not work, it's like really important. Go bowling, or I don't know, or whatever.
Thanks, Paul. And we probably have time for about one more question. But also feel free to share your insights around what's really worked for you. Maybe something you're experimenting with also, helpful to others.
Hi guys, I was a little bit late, but small note. I don't know how many of you guys are actually practicing meditation. I created an Insight Timer Impact Collective group, so we can share meditation, you know, the meditation practice that we do, or we can chat in there, and then, you know, like just focus on the mental health and the well-being. If you want the link, I can send it on our Impact Makers IC group. Where is it? On WhatsApp. So we can just join and share the meditation practices, and we might able to do it all together at some point as well. Cool.
Thank you. And I know that on Insight Timer, there's also quite a few meditations curated for like founders, entrepreneurs, that kind of give you a bit of a guided experience as well from someone who's coming from a similar like practice area, which is really interesting. But yeah, definitely share it.
I have found meditation to be really helpful as well, but I found it also really difficult to, for me, it was difficult to start as a founder because there was so much other noise going on that, like, to try to get a little bit of quiet was really beyond me. I think I was able to become a better meditator after I stopped being a founder, but that's just my story. Hopefully it's different for you all, but definitely give it a try because it's super helpful.
I found it was like a gym for me. I needed to start with like 10-minute reps.
Yeah.
15-minute reps. And now I do 20 minutes in the morning, and sandwiching it behind existing habits. So like when you say your morning routine has those 3 components, you brush your teeth, you make your bed, you make coffee, like sliding it into as a precursor before my next habit has really helped me to like just structure it in a way where it becomes routine much faster. Like I can't do the next thing until I've done this thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Habit stacking definitely makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to share that one of the things that I do is I write down my worst fear for that moment, or just say some question that is stuck in my head down in paper, and come back and look at it and maybe try to answer it on what are the next action that I can do, the smallest action that I can do to improve all of the worst fears or all of the very scary questions. That kind of help not to think about it too much and just put it into action. that helps a lot to get it out of your head, just to take some small action, and that just reset the feeling. That helps me a lot also.
That helps it feel less scary. Sometimes when you write it down, you look at it, it manifests differently in your head sometimes, our biggest fears. I really like that, this idea of like writing it down, confronting it, breaking it down into something that you can tackle small ways.
And sometimes just getting it out of your head, I mean, then you can go to sleep. I do it before I go to bed, because otherwise that's what I think about when I lay down. So it's sort of like cleaning up before I go to sleep, and it helps.
Nice. So Paul, it looks like we are at time, but just wanted to say a really big thank you for guiding us through that. I took heaps of notes myself.
Good.
They're really practical, and I think it's a good framework for us to keep continuing this conversation too. So makers, thanks for being here, and yeah, let's continue sharing strategies and tips as well.
Can I ask a favor before we go? Can we get a picture of everybody, please?
Yeah.
Like if your camera's on, folks. Thank you. And I'm happy to share the deck too, if you want. We can do that also too. Is someone going to take the picture, or should I figure it out?
Oh, I can take one.
Do you mind?
Yep. Happy smiles, everybody, or whatever you're feeling. Beautiful.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for spending time with me, and I hope it helps. Shoot questions out, and I'll send the deck